wanted to talk to you about housing starts. This is always a huge part, obviously. Inventory, the amount of inventory has a big role in pricing. Ontario, a story this week, quite startling that housing starts are really, really flat. What can you tell us about housing starts here in HRM?
I think housing starts in HRM are on the upswing.
Is that right?
Not like Ontario.
Yeah.
I did hear a stat the other day that we have like one of the highest concentrations of cranes in something like North America.
Really?
Definitely per capita, we have the most amount of cranes in the air. So we're building a lot of buildings. I don't know if we've got on yet to building as many like single family detached, semi-detached rows yet. But I think we're going to see more in 2025 into 2026, especially with the federal government, incentivizing, I think, in some ways. And I think they're going to work on more programs to get builders to start building more.
Okay. Affordability. This is something that a lot of people are concerned about in this day and age. It's
tough.
Something that we talk about a lot on the talk show, of course. What can you tell us? What can you tell people about affordability? What are your thoughts on affordability?
I think the number one thing that people are concerned about affordability is this new construction is not being affordable. But what I think we need to remember is this new construction stuff. Some of it is under affordable programs. Majority is not, but some are. But when we build new inventory, it's going to have a vertical cyclone basically and sucking all of these people that might be in lower cost housing into the newer stuff. So then it will open up opportunities, I think, at that lower price point. So the more housing that we have come on at any price point, I think is good. It creates more inventory, which means maybe on the lower cost, it will open up some availability. And as we know with anything, just like real estate, supply and demand. More supply we have, it will then ease the amount of demand. The problem is in Halifax, we just have such a high demand for housing in general, to purchase, to rent, low income, everything. The demand is just so high. So more inventory will certainly help. Yeah,
there's talk about some people feel as though they use the term bubble. That's a term that we hear a lot. And what are your thoughts on, what do you tell people who suggest that we're in a housing bubble here in Halifax?
Well, I don't think that bubble is going to burst for a long, long time, if ever. If our population continues to grow, we're just not creating enough housing to meet those demands. And I think to right the situation, we're going to need like 20 years. We need a long time in terms of construction, infrastructure, to really meet that demand. Halifax, we have over 500,000 people living here. I think the population has grown by like 20 or 25% in the last 5 years. If we continue to see growth with those numbers, I think the problem is going to continue. And I'm all about people moving here. I think we were the best kept secret. I think a lot of people from like Ontario and out west thought it was like so backwards here in like Nova Scotia, but we're so progressive and it really is a good place to live and work and do business. I think personally, I've decided this is where I want to do business, and I think our listeners would hopefully agree with me.
Okay, of the business that you do, share some of the demographics that you're looking at. Are we talking about young people, old people, middle-aged people? What type of demographics are doing business with you right now?
I would say it's like every creed, religion, age, everything. It's a wide kind of smattering of clients. I used to always say, I'm like, okay, we have first-time home buyers, we have retirees, and we have everybody in the middle. I would say that would continue to be true. Right now, the ones that are buying, the first-time home buyers, I think the average age is going up, primarily due to they need to have more income and they need to have more money to be able to get into that first home. I think the ones that bought a home, 5 years ago, those ones were probably younger than the ones that are buying a home today, in my opinion. But we're certainly seeing more like retirees, older people mortgaging their homes. It's the biggest asset that they have in many cases.
How much churn is out there?
And by churn, what do you mean?
I mean, how much turnover, people buying homes, selling homes, churn, I guess.
Not as much as last year. But it's certainly happening. It's certainly happening a lot. We've said in our previous show that the average house price in Halifax certainly has increased. I saw a stat just the other day. It's about $580,000 is the average purchase price in Halifax. I remember just like maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, maybe 3, it was like 5.25, and then it was sub 5%. So we're seeing the prices still increase, but not at the level that we were seeing them increase in like 2020, 2021. Where we were not seeing it like those levels.
There's concern.
It's going to level off.
There's concern out there, and again, these are just concerns. There's talk that the federal government, Justin Trudeau, has had conversations with some lobby groups that suggest that your principal residence could potentially be taxed. Yes, and I've spoken with people about this on my talk show, and people feel as though that's a concern because let's face it, as you've said it many times, biggest purchase of your life, a big part of people's retirement package, all of it. So what are your thoughts on this?
I really don't see that becoming a reality, personally, and I'll tell you why. It's a lot different in the U.S., for example. They're also able to claim their mortgage interest against their income tax because they're really worried about getting more Americans to become homeowners. We already have a very high penetration of home ownership in Canada, and the federal government, and we would be remiss not to mention it, has changed the capital gains regulations here. So anything that's not your principal residence now goes through a different capital gains scheme than it did, even just a couple months ago. So yes, they are playing with it, but I think they're going to still continue to protect that primary residence. In some ways it's sacred, and we know Canadians love home ownership, and we have a very high ownership levels of homes in the developed world, really, which we're very lucky.
Is there anything out there on the horizon that you're keeping your eye on similar to that?
Well, you know what? We didn't mention this at the top of the show, but we're now past the 1st of August, and borrowers that are first-time home buyers that are buying a new construction property can now get a 30-year amortization.
Right.
That's big news. And we thought that 30-year amortizations were never ever coming back, but baby, they're back. So if you're a first-time home buyer and you're buying a new construction property, I think thinking about a 30-year amortization could be a benefit. It will help with qualification, and obviously it will help with the monthly payments. So I think there's certainly some value there.
And if you're younger, why not, right?
I think if you're younger, why not?
Yeah.
You know what? In many cases, these homes are an investment, and 30 years, depending on what your age is, I think it has a lot of value. But you know what? We are seeing people going into retirement taking a 30-year amortization. So everybody's situation is different, and I think that's what makes this so interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, so when it comes to housing starts, the message in HRM from you is that we're doing okay.
You know what? I think we're doing okay. Certainly in the multifamily, we're building a lot of big buildings and stuff. We need more starts. Period. We definitely need more, and we need more that are happening right now. But I think that we're trending in the right direction here in Halifax. And I think, the supply in other areas maybe is starting to right itself based on demand. But we certainly need more.
Yeah. Rural areas, housing starts in Nova Scotia.
Maybe not as hot. Not as hot as Halifax, but I think there certainly are some starts happening. The nice thing is in rural Nova Scotia, typically the real estate markets are not as crazy as they are in Halifax, but there's a lot of land. Here we just don't have as much, building lots available. There's always land in more rural areas.
Indeed.
And that can have its complications as well. And I'm sure if we had Danielle here as well, she would be okay. Now we need to talk about well and septic, and we need to talk about easements and right-of-ways and all these other things. For sure.
Listen, lots to absorb here. How do people get a hold of you?
I think check us out online at teamclinton.ca/radio. All kinds of great content there. We have hundreds and hundreds of blog posts. We have our rates. We have a secure online application portal, and we have a link, for you to send us a message if you want. So
always great, Clinton. Thanks so much, pal.
Thanks for having me.
If you've liked what you've heard and you want to learn more, feel free to visit us online at teamclinton.ca.